Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Sabina and I help people clear unwanted thoughts, emotions and behaviors by looking at the elements, the subconscious elements like conditionings and limiting beliefs that creates all those things. And I am certified and I also teach other people, coaches and therapists this method. And I want to talk about something I think is so fascinating. It's one of my favorite subjects, and I want to talk about it from this perspective of feeling what we call social anxiety, which is this feeling of having people around you sets anxiety off. Usually a part of that could be different beliefs, like different truths that you have once concluded. I'm not good enough, people won't accept me, I'm stupid, and so on. That would cause anxiety in a social setting. But something that is very specific to being in the social setting and feeling anxiety is what I call conditioning, or is basically an emotion linked with a certain experience. And to give you a very specific example, I don't know if you know this story about Pavlov's dog. It was an actual test they did. So the concept is that your brain is having certain experiences and certain things are happening in that experience, and then your brain cannot make the distinction between the elements causing the feeling, so it just combines things in a wrong way. So the Pavlov's dog experiment was basically someone who had a dog and he wanted to condition the dog to salivate whenever he rang a bell. So what he did was that he took a bell and he rang it, and every time he rang it he gave the dog a treat. And he did it again and again, and at a certain point, once the dog has been conditioned to connect the sound of the bell with having a treat, which made the dog salivate, just shaking the little bell would have the dog salivate even when there was no treat. So that is conditioning. A different example would be if, let's say, every time someone is handing me a cookie and they point at my head with a weapon, knife, gun, something. If they do that every time they hand me this cookie, eventually I will be conditioned to feel fear every time I see that type of cookie. Or maybe I will be conditioned to feel the fear every time a hand is put in front of me in that certain motion. So it's actually not the cookie or the hand movement that caused the fear, but it was the weapon being pointed at me, but the brain does not make the distinction. The same happens in social interactions, and it's very common that as kids we feel very threatened if our parents seem to be angry at us or be dismissive of us, because we can perceive that as them not liking us, not loving us, not wanting to take care of us, and then if they don't want to take care of us being small, we can't survive. So it's a threat to our survival, and all that is very primal. So whenever we felt rejected, our parents was like, no, and they turned away from us, or they just told us no in a strict way, it usually came with anger or this feeling of being dismissed. And the perception of that is usually then they don't love me, they won't take care of me, and I can't survive. And that meaning given to that behavior is actually what causes the fear that we feel, not the rejection itself. And the same goes with anger, judgment, criticism. So that's why most people today, they get triggered. They automatically feel fear, anxiety, shame and guilt if they are judged, rejected, someone gets angry at them, or they get criticized. And it might sound strange to you that, like, how can you not feel bad for someone criticizing you, for someone rejecting you? But that's because it's so real to us. Our brain is just automatically creating those emotions when we have that experience. So once that conditioning is created in the mind, then you just automatically feel it. And the fascinating part is that it only takes a few minutes to detach that conditioning. And imagine how life would be different if there was no fear and no shame and no anxiety connected to someone criticizing you, someone judging you. That would be very different, right? And imagine how you would be and feel different around people if there was no, like, primal threat felt if people did something. A lot of people have the belief people will judge me, meaning that when you're around people, you will perceive them as judging you, and if judging is conditioned to produce fear and guilt and anxiety, then you have social anxiety. So The point of this is really to show that even though it seems very complex and overwhelming when you have this experience, and trust me, I know, because I had massive social anxiety, which is also why I'm so fascinated about this process, is because it just cleared this so amazingly well. And I worked with hundreds of people all around the world who also had severe social anxiety. It's possible to be conditioned again to fear something like being judged. Let's say that you clear it from childhood and then you are in an abusive relationship for 10 years. You can have that conditioning created again, but again, in a few minutes, it can be detached. Which means that there is none of the even deep trauma that cannot be cleared if we know exactly how to approach it and how to gently detach it and make sure that we are actually going to the root of things and removing the root so that the anxiety doesn't regrow. So this is not at all coping, this is changing. And if you thought this was fascinating, you're welcome to sub, you're welcome to thumbs up, you're welcome to let me know in the comment section what this brought up for you. If you have any questions, if it made sense, if it resonated, if you can recognize any of the fears I talked about with being judged or criticized or rejected. And I just can't wait to hear from you and what you thought about this in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye. Thank you.